What if everything you thought you knew about Tupac's death was a lie? What if the man you danced to on MTV was secretly orchestrating $1 million hit from behind velvet ropes and champagne flutes? Because tonight, in a prison call that's shaking hip hop to its core, Suge Knight just said the unthinkable out loud that Sean Diddy Combs paid to have Tupac Shakur assassinated. Not rumored, not whispered, confirmed. Buckle up, because this isn't just a murder mystery. It's a bombshell that rewrites music history, exposes government deals, and flips the entire entertainment world on its head. This is the truth they never wanted you to hear. Suge Knight's voice echoed through the phone line like a man finally free from the weight of 3 decades of silence. From behind prison bars, his tone wasn't angry. It was exhausted, like someone who had seen too much and carried too many secrets for too long. Yeah, he said with unmistakable certainty, Diddy paid to have Tupac killed. Those words dropped like lead on the ears of the world, and just like that, the decade-old conspiracy transformed into confirmed history. For years, whispers had swirled about the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, the tension between Bad Boy and Death Row, and how one of hip-hop's most beloved icons died too young in a storm of bullets in Las Vegas. But the man who sat beside Tupac during his final moments, the man soaked in his blood, had finally connected the last dot, and it wasn't just some off-hand comment. Suge Knight laid out names, motives, and dollar signs. According to him, Diddy, at the height of his fame, draped in diamonds and industry power, wanted not only to end Tupac, but to erase Suge himself from the game entirely. $1 million, Suge whispered. That's what it cost to kill Pac. $1 million, paid in cash, moved through Zip, signed off by Puffy. For the first time, it wasn't theory, it was testimony from the one man who never spoke until now, and he wasn't the only one finally breaking silence. Gene Deal, Diddy's former bodyguard, a man once loyal to the Bad Boy empire, had already been dropping clues for years. Carefully, cautiously, but now he was done being careful. Diddy's been an informant for decades. Gene revealed, eyes stone cold, in a recent interview. Everything went through him, money, moves, messages. He wasn't just pointing fingers, he gave details, how Keffy D, the man who eventually got arrested for the murder, named Diddy as the bankroller, how surveillance tapes and inside men at Death Row fed info to Diddy's camp, and how the FBI looked the other way, not because they couldn't prove it, but because Diddy was feeding them intelligence in return. It was a devil's bargain. Protect the snitch, ignore the blood. That's why the case stayed cold. That's why nobody touched Puffy for 27 years. Because in America, information is more valuable than justice, and Diddy had information. Breaking. Suge Knight confirms Diddy paid to have Tupac shot, as Suge Knight's statement began rippling through the media. Social platforms lit up with rage, disbelief, and realization. For many, it was the puzzle piece that finally fit. But inside industry circles, the fear was different. It was confirmation of what insiders had whispered for decades, that Diddy, known publicly as a charming mogul and flashy entertainer, had been moving like a mafia boss in a suit. And worse, he'd done it with the quiet protection of the federal government. Gene Deal had warned this day would come. His years under Diddy were filled with quiet meetings, silenced witnesses, and coded language. Gene said the deal was brokered through Eric Zip Martin, a longtime Bad Boy affiliate who allegedly served as the middleman between Diddy and Keffy D. According to testimony and internal sources, Diddy wanted Tupac dead, and Suge along with him. It wasn't just about music beef or diss tracks. This was about fear. Fear that Tupac was becoming too powerful, too outspoken, too dangerous for a music industry built on control. Tupac was unfiltered, revolutionary, and unpredictable. Diddy was calculated. So when the streets whispered about $1 million contract hit, those who knew the inner workings of Bad Boy said it was never just a rumor, it was strategy. Behind the glitz of flashing cameras and champagne-drenched award shows, there was an empire built on fear, manipulation, and surveillance. While Suge and Tupac made headlines for their wild reputations, Diddy was quietly assembling a network of protection that stretched beyond hip-hop. He allegedly had LAPD officers on the payroll, DA agents in his pocket, and even federal handlers who saw him not just as a source, but as a tool. And then there was the surveillance system, not figuratively, literally. Lil Rod's affidavit and multiple former employees have testified that Diddy had every room in his Miami mansion wired for video and audio, not just the studio, every room, celebrity guests, political figures, foreign dignitaries, every person who walked into those parties walked into a trap. Diddy wasn't just recording for fun. He was building leverage, blackmail, insurance. For every secret he exposed, he collected 2 more to stay safe. That's how he survived the Biggie case. That's how he dodged the Tupac murder investigation. That's why Gene Deal said he's untouchable. Because when you've got dirt on everyone, nobody wants to see you fall. They're too afraid you'll take them with you. But now, in 2025, that empire is cracking. It started with the Keffe D arrest in 2023, a move that many thought would finally close the Tupac case. But instead of bringing clarity, it opened a Pandora's box of secrets that the system had spent years burying. Keffe D, facing a lifetime in prison, flipped fast, and in his courtroom filings one name kept appearing again and again, Sean Diddy Combs. He said Diddy was the one who fronted the money, that he wanted both Tupac and Suge Knight erased from the board, that Eric Zip Martin handed off the weapon, that everything was planned in advance, and most chillingly, he claimed the hit was never meant to be sloppy, it was supposed to be surgical. Tupac was meant to vanish. Quietly, but Tupac didn't die instantly. He bled out over days, and the world noticed. Suddenly, the plan wasn't quiet anymore, it was chaos. Conspiracy theories exploded. Investigators started digging. But still, Diddy walked free, because even with all this, the feds didn't move. Why? Because Diddy was giving them more than music. According to multiple inside sources, including federal leaks and industry whistleblowers, Diddy had been working with intelligence agencies for years. His rise to power wasn't just built on talent. It was built on deals, quiet ones, dangerous ones. A former FBI informant testified anonymously that Diddy provided surveillance footage, insider details on rap industry movements, even information on political guests at his infamous mansion parties. He was more valuable free than in prison, and for a while that protected him, until now. Because Suge Knight's prison confession didn't just ignite the media, it shattered the silence inside the system. Prosecutors can no longer ignore multiple eyewitnesses, financial trails, and corroborated confessions. The moment Suge said, Diddy paid to have Tupac killed, it forced everyone, from bloggers to federal agents, to take a second look. If the man sitting in the passenger seat during the shooting was saying it, how could they pretend not to hear? Meanwhile, Diddy's fortress is beginning to crumble from within. Former bodyguards, assistants, and executives are coming forward, some anonymously, some bold-faced, each confirming more layers of corruption. Gene Deal, who has been the loudest of all, says Diddy isn't just a mogul. He's a man who knows too much, and that makes him both powerful and dangerous. He's like a human hard drive. Gene said in a recent interview, the man has dirt on presidents, on CEO, on other artists. That's why he's still breathing. But even Diddy knows that time is running out. As more investigations open up spanning from homicide to human trafficking to blackmail, he's making moves. He's checking into rehab. He's calling it mental health recovery, but insiders say it's just strategic PR, a play to soften the legal hammer. A distraction, and while he tries to rebrand himself as a man in healing, new reports say he's negotiating with legal teams not for innocence, but for silence. What will it take to keep this out of court? What will it cost to bury the tapes? How many more lives have to be silenced to save his? The scariest part, some of the people protecting Diddy aren't in music, they're in politics. There are confirmed meetings between Diddy and Trump administration officials. There's speculation of pardons being quietly discussed. Why? Because what Diddy knows, what he has stored on those hard drives, could bring down the establishment itself. Think about it. How does a rapper from Harlem get European royalty to attend his parties? How does he survive a federal raid, a murder conspiracy, and a human trafficking probe, all without a single felony conviction, because someone, somewhere, is still protecting him, and Suge Knight just blew the lid off all of it? Because once Suge talked, others followed. Roger Bonds, Diddy's former enforcer, confirmed it. He told us to beat Gene's ass, not scare him, end him. These weren't petty street fights. These were hits. Silencing missions, and the only reason people like Gene are still alive today is because they refuse to back down, because they knew the moment they shut up, the world would forget, and forgetting is exactly what Diddy has always counted on. So now, 28 years after Tupac bled out under the neon lights of Vegas, justice might finally be closing in, not from the courts, but from the voices that never stopped screaming. Suge Knight's confirmation isn't just a headline, it's a death knell for the old lies. And Diddy knows it. That's why he's more isolated than ever. Surveillance tapes hidden, mansion sealed, security doubled, because even with all his money, power, and connections, he knows he's no longer in control of the narrative. For the first time, the public isn't looking at him as a flashy entertainer. They're looking at him as a man who might have killed Tupac Shakur, and if that label sticks, it's over. No redemption arc, no rebrand, just handcuffs and a legacy destroyed. But here's the deeper truth. Diddy didn't just kill Tupac the man. He tried to kill what Tupac stood for. Resistance, rebellion, revolution, and now, with Suge's confession and Gene's receipts, that truth is clawing its way out from the grave. And yet one question remains: will justice come, or will it once again be buried under money, influence, and fear? The world is watching, the fans, the survivors, the mothers of the dead, because if Diddy walks again, it won't be because he's innocent. It'll be because America protects its most powerful sinners, so long as they have something to trade. But this time, the streets are louder, the receipts are real, and Suge Knight, a man with nothing left to lose, just set fire to the entire house of lies. So we ask again, did Diddy pay to have Tupac killed? According to Suge Knight, Gene Deal, and a growing army of witnesses, the answer is yes, and the world won't be silent this time.